What's up, guys? So today, I'm gonna be doing a bakugou video. I'm sorry if my voice is not so good. I'm kind of sick, kind of not. Today, I was just having very bad stomach pains, and now I'm having a headache. And I know you guys say put yourself first before you make videos. Make sure you're okay to make the videos before. And I'm like, I would, but literally, I have nothing to do. Like, this week have been so much of an improvement for me. Like, I've been getting schoolwork done, and hopefully my grades have been going up. Because when I tell you, in all my core classes I had F's. In all my core classes I had F's, and I need to get them up so I can pass the sixth grade. Because I'm telling you, I am not gonna live another sixth grade. But that's besides the point. Um, but there was something I wanted to say. Oh yeah, if you wanted to help a girl out, subscribing would really help. Like, really help. My channel always sparked up at the not wrong moments, but at the weirdest moments. And I told my friends about this channel, and they was like, "What the fuck is this channel?" And I'm honestly, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I don't, really don't. But yeah, um, here's just a little story time real quick before we start the video. I had told I hadn't told my friend about the channel yet or let him see it yet, but I had told him or asked him what video should I do for this, like in the next few days or something. And um he knows who Deku and Bakugou is, but he doesn't know who Malfoy is, Draco Malfoy. And yeah. So also, if you was wondering, yes, I do have my Draco Malfoy wand. Um, once I get it out of the box. Well, it's out. I pulled it out of the box, but once I pull it back out of the box and take a picture of it, I'll post it in my next video. Sorry for the long intro, but yeah. Let's just get straight on into video, since my friend chose me to do a Bakugo video. Kosuke Bakugo, the boy who is super explosive, basically. Really has a explosion type of personality, a very big temper. Then there's you, who is sadly deaf. But this can also be a good thing. Your parents have been divorced for a good 5 years now. They've always been divorced for 5 years, and they've never even talked. Before then, they, you know, used to argue all the time. Well, from what it looked like, you couldn't hear anything. You didn't even know what was going on. But from what your mother told you in sign language, is that your father had not liked you ever since he was born, and ever since he was diagnosed for being deaf. He said it was going to be too hard, and he wanted another kid to make sure it wasn't deaf. But then they had your little sister, Chloe. Chloe was the little girl he always wanted. She wasn't deaf nor blind. She didn't have any conditions. She didn't have anything wrong with her. A straight A student, to be the exact. And the thing is, she's only 2 years younger than you. So when your parents were arguing when you was, if I'm correct, 11, she was there being a 9-year-old in school, just having her fun, not having to worry about anything at home, being the perfect little girl she is. While you, being homeschooled, so you didn't hear if people was bullying you or not. You kind of just was at home. Then when you would come down and ask your mom or dad for help on a problem, they would be arguing. Always arguing. Your father left, you was with your mom, and your mom cared about you forever. And of course, your dad took Chloe. But that's besides the point. You had somehow made it into UA High. Luckily, there was a few other deaf students there, so they had a person who was doing sign language to make sure all students could hear and, of course, see what they were saying. Now, you was actually number 2 in the UA test or the UA exam, whatever you call it. A boy named Kasuki Bakugo was first. But honestly, by his name, you could tell he was a hothead. Now, it's half into the year, and you have, of course, met Kasuki Bakugo and his explosive temper. When he thinks you're annoying him, you have to quickly write down that you're deaf. And he looked like he had some type of expression on his face. But he never said anything else. And to this day, he hasn't really talked to you unless it's for a project. One day, you was walking home until you felt somebody tap your shoulder. You quickly spun around to see Bakugo. He had started doing sign language, and you was honestly surprised. You had done sign language saying, "You know sign language?" And he had nodded his head. He had said in sign language that since his quirk might make him lose his hearing, he had to learn sign language when he was young. And the way he was acting with you was kind of suspicious. He was super kind and not so angry. You had nodded your head and continued walking. You had asked him in a very mumbling voice if he lived somewhere around here. He had nodded his head and said he only lived 2 houses away from you in sign language. And the thing was, you had realized he knew where you lived because he would follow you. Not in a creepy way, of course. He would only follow you because of his parents' house. A few days later, you were sitting at home until you could feel the house rumble. Being confused, of course, you go downstairs and see your mom on the floor. And it looked like she had been stabbed on her shoulder, or at least a gunshot grazed her. You look outside to see your father quickly getting into his car and running. It had been 5 years since they got divorced. Why are they fighting now? It was very not expected. Of course, your father was mad, but that was 5 years ago. They haven't talked ever since. You had quickly called 911, but knowing that you couldn't talk, you had went over to Bakugo's house. Quickly banging on the door, a girl who looked like Bakugo quickly answered the door. She had said something which you could see from lip reading, and you had quickly said that, or mumbled, that your mom had basically just been stabbed or shot. She quickly runs over to the house with you and sees your mother still on the floor, blood coming out of her shoulder. She quickly calls 911 and they come. Now, this is when the police kind of start asking you questions. You were getting confused because they were talking so fast. You had put your hands up to tell them to stop, and you had pointed at your ear. One of the police officers had immediately guessed what you meant, and you could see what he was saying to the police officer. She's deaf, she can't hear us. He had nodded. Little did you know, there was a way you could still hear. Hearing aids, of course. Now you might be saying, you're completely deaf. How would hearing aids help you? Well, they had took you to the doctors right after your mom had got shot just to make sure you was okay. And when they checked, they realized that your hearing wasn't completely gone. It was just to the point where you think you can't hear anything, but you can hear the loudest sounds, but they're just so quiet. Like let's say an explosion happens and it's like right across the building from you. You could hear it as well as somebody talking close to your ear. They said they could get hearing aids made from somebody quirk they know and make it where you could hear perfectly fine. And these hearing aids could stay in your ears forever and you wouldn't have to take them out. Also, you probably wouldn't even notice. But every year you would have to get them changed, for safety reasons. Just for a while your mom was in the hospital, you would have to stay at Bakugo's house since he was the only person you knew, really. You didn't really talk at UA. You was really only friends with Bakugo if you would consider him a friend. Also, you was friends with Todoroki, but you couldn't stay at his house because of his father. Going to Bakugo's house, he was clueless. He looked at his mom to ask, why was she here? He quickly explains everything and tells you to sit down on the dining table to get you some food. You hate, and she took you to the guest room, and you heard a knock on the door. Who is it? You ask, not mumbling at all. You could hear Bakugo whisper his name. He opens the door. Hey, my mom has said that you could hear again. Is that true? He said, just genuinely curious. You had nodded your head. If you don't mind me asking, my mom didn't tell me everything that happened, but could you just tell me so I can understand? He said. This was unexpected for Bakugo. Even he was surprised what he was saying. He was never kind to anybody. Never. He was kind of just always so, how do I say this? Temper headed? You had told him to sit down, and he did. You had explained everything, detail from top to bottom, basically, start to finish. You had almost broke down in tears, and Bakugo could see that. After he saw that, he had slowly, but surely, hugged you. Surprised you had slightly flinched. And Bakugo knew that this was suspected. You was going to flinch, knowing that you probably wasn't used to this type of touching from him or touching from anybody besides your own mother. Now, once you had realized what was happening, you had hugged him back. And this is when you started crying. It had only been at least 5 hours, maybe even 10. Who knows? You lost count. And you're already missing your mother. Bakugo had suddenly left after hugging you and talking to go back to his room to go to sleep. Once you was ready, you went to sleep and you had a nightmare. The exact same thing happening to your mom, but way different. You had got downstairs before, everything happened. And you saw your mother on the floor, shot in the heart. Everything was flashing by, but that wasn't the only thing happening. Everybody in your neighborhood was dying. And once you realized that, you had realized that Bakugo was gonna die. And it had felt so real that you thought it was real. But as soon as you woke up, you had realized you were sweating and you was breathing hard. You had heard a light knock on your door. Who is it? You said. It's Bakugo. Is everything okay? He said in a whispered tone. You couldn't even muster words. He had slowly but surely went into your room. It was basically pitch black dark, so you couldn't see anything. He, you couldn't even muster words. Did you have a nightmare? He said. You nodded, knowing he couldn't see you. Yes, he said. Kind of embarrassed since, nightmares are kind of not normal for you. You want to talk about it? He said. If you talked about it, it would be the best way to get it off your chest and feel more comfortable around him, knowing that he knows that things are going on. He had sat down on the bed, making sure not to sit on you or anything, and you had told him, and he had listened for every single bit. So, what you're saying is your mom died, then your right side neighbors died, then your left side, and the three houses in front of you, and then me, you said. And your mom, and your dad, you said. Whoa, he said. Whoa, is this because of your mother getting shot? He said, knowing that it was probably true. Yeah, it would be an understatement if you could say you was blushing. That's an understatement, of course. It's just, I've never had nightmares that just something happened. When I had found out my mom and my dad was fighting and they was getting a divorce, I didn't have nightmares. I didn't even have dreams. I never have dreams or nightmares. It was so different and I thought it was so real since I never really had a dream or a nightmare, he said. It felt like I could go and feel things, but the only thing I felt was pain. Every time I found somebody dead, I felt pain, he said. Are you talking about emotional pain or physical pain? He said. Physical. My mother, it had made me feel like I was having a heartache or like a heart attack. And then when it was my neighbors, it felt like it was just like a stab or just like a knife going through my stomach. And then when it was you and your mother and your father, it felt like I had finally been taken out, he said. Because right after your father, and your mother died, I woke up, he said. How about tomorrow you go talk to my mom? She might know what this is, he said. I don't want to go back to sleep though, he said. You, you could sleep with me, he said, mumbling a little bit. What? You said you could sleep with me, he said. Um, sure, he said. He had soon up felt him crawl up in your bed, and you could see his arm reach out. He had one in his arms, and he cuddled you, till both of you fell asleep. This had been going on for the next few weeks, started coming into months, and that was it. 2 months to be the exact. Every night you would have a nightmare, and then Bakugo would call you. And to be specific, it was always at least two nightmares. One of them being, of course, the one where your mother dies and neighbors die, then Bakugo and his family dies. Or this really scary one where your father kills you, not your mother. Your mother had just got out of the hospital. That was because of a lot of tissue and surgery had to be done on her. You thought she was only shot once, but she was actually shot 3 times in the shoulder. You had moved back in with your mom, told her everything with the hearing and the nightmares, but your mom never wanted you to date somebody. Well, she did, but not this soon. And she especially wouldn't want you to, especially when she's hurt. She always wanted to make sure you were safe. And if you told her about you and Bakugo cuddling, you knew she would freak out. So you left out the details of you and Bakugo cuddling. All you said was how he comforted you and went back to his room and fell asleep. And you fell asleep soon after. She wasn't really fond of him. Of course, his temper is not something to be fond of. The last 2 months of school had been kind of harsh on you. Mr. Aizawa even said that your training was more off than usual, and that you was actually number 2 in the class, Bakugo being number 3. But when you went down to number 4, that shocked a lot of people. Of course, nobody in class my name besides Bakugo and Mr. Aizawa, of course, knew what was going on with your mother. But they knew soon after you finally got back up to your place. Bakugo only being slightly mad that you passed him again. With all the villain attacks and the thing happening with your mom, you felt like everything was crushing in on you. But after you get through school with the way, you could finally be a pro hero and live your life. Walking home one day, Bakugo wasn't with you. Bakugo had to tutor Kirishima for a test that was coming up. You didn't need tutoring. Well, right now. You was going to study, though. You just didn't want to join on because you knew Kirishima was going to get a little dumb, and Bakugo was at least going to hit him on the head or something. When you was walking back home, you saw a man in all black. And when you was little, your mother had always told you, never let a man who is dressed in all completely black and you can't see their face get near you. You had simply dodged the man, but after a few minutes of walking, you looked behind you to make sure he wasn't following you. But there he is, straight up following you. You had started picking up the pace and he did too. Eventually, you had saw your house, but that was all on a sudden until you felt a man grab you. You quickly spun around and kicked him in the side, him clutching his side. His hood had fell off from this, and you saw your father's face. And then you started running again. Your father yelling at you to come back and stop running and saying he wasn't going to do anything. You knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to try to kill you. You had soon went into the house, locked the door. Your mother was on the couch. Is something wrong, honey? She said, looking at you painting. But, Dad, he was following me, he said. She had quickly stand up, calling 911 immediately. They was actually looking for him for shooting your mother. That's when you heard banging on the wall 30 minutes after calling the police. And at that exact moment, the police came and arrested him. The next 2 months after this was pretty normal. Same schoolwork, but you had got closer to Bakugo. You had realized more things about him and how he has a soft side, of course. But the kidnapping happened, and now you're in dorms. If we're being honest, you was pretty scared for Bakugo. Bakugo getting kidnapped? Yeah, that's scary. You had soon realized that Bakugo might be a little traumatized, but you didn't really know. Also, All Might's retired. This scared you. Why? It just did. He was never the type of person to be scared that much, but it scared you a lot. And the only thing to make it worse, Bakugo blames himself for it. Now, when you was walking past Bakugo and Deku, you had heard that he was asking Deku to go outside. You being the confused person you are, you followed them out, but you made sure to not be seen. You went behind one of the buildings. It was a training thing. You had heard Bakugo talking, and then you heard him crying. He was pretty upset about this. Next thing you know, you heard explosions and punches, and it was crazy. Then you had saw All Might, and then again things were happening, and All Might had all of a sudden said your name. You know, Bakugo, you wouldn't want listener to know you're doing this, would you? He said. You could see Bakugo's you know, realization in his eyes. His eyes widening a little bit, he had quickly shook his head no. But you want listener to know that you're hurt, don't you? He had said. And he knit his head again. You had looked over to Deku to see him staring at you. He had quickly looked away, knowing that you had finally knew he knew you was there. You could see All Might glance at you and then glance back at Bakugo. He must have known you was there too, Bakugo being the only one not knowing. You could see All Might give you a signal to sneak back into your door and to make sure you, of course, didn't get house arrest. You had to sneak back into your room. You could hear Aizawa yelling at Bakugo and Deku and found out they had house arrest. I mean, that's what they get for sneaking out. But soon after, there's a knock at your door. Who is it? You said. It's a Bakugo, he said. He opened the door. There's something I need to talk about, he said. Is it about you feeling like you basically ended All Might? He said. He looked at you surprised. Almost everybody knows, you said, looking away. Can I talk to you about it? He said. Of course, he said. You both had sat down and he talked about it, suddenly crying and you hugging him. You had instantly got flashbacks from when you had was talking about your mother being shot. You crying and then him hugging you. But this time it was reversed. You hadn't realized you guys were hugging for so long that both of you had basically laid down now and both of you was asleep. The cuddling was basically normal now. You guys were considered best friends. You were the only one who could calm down Bakugo. And Kirishima, of course. Kirishima and Mina would make jokes about how you and Bakugo act like you guys are dating and, the silly stuff. But you knew it was all a joke. Even though you have the slightest feelings for Bakugo, you knew he wasn't into relationships. Because he wanted to make sure he focused on becoming number one. Bakugo was in the common room one day. You were serving you something to drink, about to head back up to your dorm, when he had all of a sudden stopped you. Listener, I need to, tell you something, he said. Sure, he said. How do I even fucking say this? He said. Ever since I first met you, I have really, really liked you. And I know this might be sudden, but if you hadn't realized, you're kind of the only person I'm nice to besides shitty hair, he said. Or recognize Dun's face or Sosa's face, he said. I like you too, he said, gaining confidence all of a sudden. He had all of a sudden kissed you out of nowhere. You quickly kissing back. You felt like you was on cloud nine. And that's the end of the video. When I tell you I had thought of this idea as soon as I recorded the intro, I was so happy. And just think about it, if I do make this a part two, I'm gonna make it where Bakugo's gonna start losing his hearing. And, after he starts losing his hearing, both of you guys will basically have your hearing loss, but he'll have hearing aids, you'll have hearing aids, and you guys will both hear perfectly fine. But I just have an idea in mind, and I don't want to save that yet. So you guys have gonna wait for that. But yeah, again, I'm not feeling well, so if I am like randomly just randomly not posting like 2 to 3 or 4 days after posting, or maybe even the next day, just know I am not dead. I just ain't feeling well. Because today was a very crappy day for me. Also, I just realized how I post. I like almost always post at like 3, like 1, 2, or 3 in the morning. Or for me, that is. For other people, it's like maybe 4 p.m. for them. Who knows? But, yeah. Again, if you want to help a girl out, you could subscribe. It really does help. There was something I want to say, and I don't know. Yeah. Okay. The Draco Malfoy thing I started with my OC basically, but it's you putting it. That is going to be a filler. So I currently have no ideas for part 10 or the afterlife for Deku. So until I have ideas for it, I'm going to be posting at least one Kirishima Kima video at least. I don't know. But the fillers are going to be Draco videos. Okay? So you guys can have that. But you guys can give me ideas and it would help. I have so many videos I need to chart them down and put them on my wall and make sure I check them out. Cause that's what I need to do. But yeah, this is a long video. Damn. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. Um, if you go to my YouTube channel, there should be 2 Twitch links. I need to make them 2. And you guys could see me stream and you guys could talk to me. We could chat and just have fun. Um, I will be answering questions you have, and you might get sneak peeks of what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, night, or wherever you are, and peace.